Right, I think so. Now, so far we have started the discussion on the hierarchy part. Okay, so we are working on hierarchies. I believe we have created a very simple hierarchy on the product and the offices, I believe. If not, we'll recreate them. But again, I believe we did create products. Let's go to the repository and see what we have there. So this might be administration. So let me open the repository in online mode, which is the repository that is currently running on the server. Okay, so the password of the repository is welcome one, and the user is WebLogic, and the password is welcome one. So which means we are first connecting to the WebLogic, and WebLogic is opening the repository for us. So for that reason, I'm providing the password for my repository. Right, okay, I think we created hierarchies for the products as well as the time. Okay, so within the time we have year, half, quarter, month, week, right? Okay, so now on the products we have total, brand, line of business, type, product detail, right? So this is the product hierarchy. So it's kind of hierarchies are basically identifying how do we navigate within a particular business dimension. Suppose say product is one of the dimension, right? So within the product, how is it actually organized? So now, product is organized. My product information is organized in a way that you have the product total first, which is for all the products. Then you have a particular brand. Within the brand, you have the line of business. Then within that, you have the product type, and then the details of the product. Okay, so these are my product information is actually organized as different levels within the hierarchy. Similarly, if I look at the time, my time is also actually organized as the different levels. Suppose I have the level year, and within the year I have the half year, then I have the quarter, then I have the month, then I have the week, and this is my detail. So this is how my time information is organized. So you take any dimension. So all you have to do is you have to understand how exactly it is organized. So it may change from organization to organization. Suppose if I see the product, and now I have the brand here, and within the brand I have the LOB, then I have the type. But it doesn't mean that every business has the same thing. So somebody may have a brand and they may not have the line of business, or they may have something in between the brand and the line of business. So you have to understand the business. You have to understand every business, and accordingly you have to create your hierarchy, right? So now let's see another hierarchy, which let's try to see how do we actually use these hierarchies. How does our reports actually look like when we use the hierarchies? So let me go to my reporting. So I go to my Mozilla. This is my analytics. Now let's go to the new and say analysis, which means I'm going to create a new report altogether. So it's a new analysis, and as you see here, I see the two subject areas. What are the subject areas that I have here, right? So one is the north, other is the south. I see the two subject areas here. Let's select north, and I select north. Whatever that I have in north will be displayed to me. So what do I have in my north? Let me go to my this and say I have my products and offices and the revenue. If I look at the south time revenue products, right, so now since I selected the north, I have the products as well as the offices. But if you see here, in the north products and offices, but if you look at the hierarchies, I have the hierarchy defined only for the products, not yet for the offices. Okay, we'll come back and we'll see that as well. But again, for now, let's try to see the difference between the products and the offices in terms of, if a hierarchy, if a dimension is having a hierarchy, how does it look like? And if it doesn't have a hierarchy, how does it look like when you actually do the reporting? Okay, so how does actually your reporting will look like, and how does your reporting will improve when we define hierarchy? So the advantage of the hierarchy. So if I look at the product now, suppose say I want to create a report which is my brand, and within my brand I would like to create something called revenue. So this is my product brand, and the revenue is the report that I'm actually using. So I click on results. Right, so this is the brand and the revenue. So now if you see here, if I click on the brand, then I'm navigating to the line of business. If I click on the line of business, I'm navigating to the product type. And if I click on the product type, I'm going to the individual product key. If I go back, fun pod. Okay, there's a fun pod, and within the fun, guys, can you see my screen? Okay. I think Kiran, I think there's some problem with your internet or some net connectivity. Okay. Right, so now you can navigate from one level to the other level. So I have my brand level, I'm navigating from brand level to the line of business level, and from line of business level, if I click on the games, I'm navigating the product type level, and from product type level, I'm navigating the next level. So this is where you see the hierarchies are useful in the sense, the business doesn't need to actually know what is the next level. I mean, obviously it is already defined. You click on it, it will automatically take you there. So it's kind of an autopilot. So he simply clicks on it, goes to the next level, clicks on it, goes to the next level, clicks on it, goes to the next level. And the essentially, if you look at here, so what is that I'm seeing here? The sales for, suppose the revenue for the brand mistake is say 200,000, assuming somewhere. So now the revenue for the brand BizTech is 200,000. So within the BizTech, within the brand BizTech, if I would like to understand more information, like how does this 200,000 has come from? So I click on my BizTech, and I can see within my BizTech I have the two line of businesses. So within my 200,000, I have two line of businesses. One is a communication, other is electronic. So together, if I add this and this, it becomes 200,000. So now within this communication, if I want to understand, so how does this revenue, say 100,000 has come from? Then I click on communication. Within the communication, I can see there is two product types that is contributing to this particular communication line of business, which is the summary of sum of this and this, which means it is splitting the value to the levels, which is helping me to understand what is the product type that is having more revenue. So I can clearly say, okay, so the cell phones is having more revenue than the smartphones. Okay, within the cell phones, if you want to understand kind of what product is having more revenue, if you see 8 and 17, so 8 is having more revenue, 17 is having less revenue. But again, yeah, we can understand. So this level with respect to the name, so this is confusing, right? So product key is 8 and 17, you can't really make sense. That is the reason when you're defining the levels, right, your levels always has to be descriptive. In the sense, if I have a product brand, if you see here, when I'm going to the next level, so product brand is a business, so I can understand something here. So line of business is also a kind of descriptive. Product type is a descriptive, but key here at this level, I don't have the descriptive key. I have the key which is not descriptive enough. So the problem here is, I cannot really understand it very well, because I have to refer again what is the name of the product for the product key 8. So that is again, something which we need to refer back to the table or some other information, which is not good. So always when you're defining the keys at the levels, you need to make sure that you have some descriptive information if possible. Okay. So now, but again, I don't have any product information here which explains, which is descriptive. So let's go back to see if I have anything as such, the product description. So I have my product description, but again, unfortunately, I have not used that product description here, because when I just dragged and dropped, when I created a dimension, I only created these 3 columns and a key, not any description. So now how do I do? Now, can I add this now? Yes, you can add it very well. Yeah. So what do I do here? I simply drag and drop this column to here. So probably the product description is added. If I think I could rename and I could give some better name, descriptive name. Let's say product description. Now what I can do, I can simply take my product description to here. So now the reason I'm showing it now is I want you guys to be in a position to play around. It's not that once you define it from a hierarchy, you have to stick to that. So you have the flexibility to change the things. You have the flexibility to add the new things or modify the things. So suppose if I miss a column here, it doesn't mean that that's done forever. No, you can still add it again. That's not a problem, as long as you have the column available in your physical layer. Okay, so now that way, I have just added my description, which is missing, which I think I want. So now I added key. So now, since adding a column here doesn't mean that it will display in the navigation. Suppose now I've added the column here, but it is not actually a key. So if you see here, only key columns will be displayed. Suppose let me check in. Okay, so warnings are fine. I'll explain you why these warnings are coming. So what does the warning says? Customer and officers has logical dimension because it has a logical table, so that does not join to the fact. What it says is when you start creating the hierarchy, right? Out of all these dimensions, I have created hierarchy for the product. I have created the hierarchy for the time. So what is the left? The dimension that is left is a customer and the offices. So I have not created any hierarchy. So what it's saying, there's 2 more dimensions without the hierarchy defined. So that's what is the warning. Warning is okay. Warning will not stop your process, in the sense you can deploy and you can use the repository even though there is a warnings. But again, most of the times when it gives warnings, that could be an issue if you don't resolve. It's not that it's 100% an issue, but yes, you have to see that you have to go through the warnings and understand the warnings. It's not like simply ignore them, right? So sometimes warnings could be a potential errors. Now if I see here, so for the product I have my hierarchy. What I'll do is, see, hierarchy, whenever you change the hierarchy, you have to get rid of the existing hierarchy and you have to add it. So you have to add it again. So I updated my hierarchy with a new column, but again, if I have to have that change to reflect, I have to add the hierarchy again to my presentation there. So that's one thing that you need to remember. So I checked in and I would like to save. Okay, now once I have updated my hierarchy. Once I've changed my hierarchy, I've checked in and saved. Now, how do I actually use that information here? So now the information doesn't just come like that here. So you cannot really use all those details here. So the first thing that you need to do is you need to reload server metadata. So what is the reload server metadata? Is basically you are working on a repository that is currently being configured on the server. So I'm working on a repository that is currently being configured on the server. So now I have modified this repository. When I modified this repository, this is a browser, right? So browser does not really get refreshed automatically with the information that has changed or something. So now, since we know that our repository changed, now my browser doesn't refresh it automatically with the new content. I have to choose an option, reload server metadata. In the sense, my browser will reload the repository from the server again, refresh kind of, it will simply reload it again so that you have the up-to-date information. So see, if this is my hierarchy, the total. I still have, okay, right. So if I see here, the problem is, I still have the same information. If I go to the BizTech, communication, cell phones, now I still have 8 and 17. Why? I have added my product description here, right? So when I added my product description, technically it should display the product key as well as the product description. So the problem here is, when you have a column at the level, so suppose the detail level I have my product description. So having a column, it doesn't mean that it will display the columns. Only the columns, only the key columns. Suppose here for the brand I have a product brand, for the line of business I have the line of business. So only the key columns will be displayed when you drill down. So now here my product description is not a key column. So since it is not a key, it is not actually displayed. Now, so how do I actually make it to be displayed? So if I double click on my product detail, if I see here, I have the key. So at this point of time, I select the key and I edit the key. So how many columns that I've selected as a key? Only product key. So if I select my product description, now I have my both the columns as the key. So what did I do now? I've edited my existing key. This is my product detail key. Within that I have selected both the columns as the keys, which means my product key and my product description both are the key columns now. Okay, let's check in. Let's see, I'm going to delete this hierarchy. Always, whenever there is a change, the hierarchy, simply delete it. They won't get reflected automatically. You have to get it off and add it again. Or all you can do is, the another way of doing the things is you totally get rid of these products. That's also one of the option. So you simply add the products from here to here. Now when you add the products, it will also automatically add the hierarchy. So that's one thing. If there is a hierarchy defined on your dimension, when you add the dimension, the hierarchy will automatically get added along with it. So you can also do that way. Either of the ways. Okay, so I have simply saved my hierarchy. Now I'll go back here, and since I have changed my hierarchy and I would like to, so this is online mode, because since this is online mode, I don't need to restart my server. That's the first thing. And any changes that I do is live on the server. Okay, so that is the reason what I would like to do. I would like to say reload the server metadata, which is a kind of refresh of my repository into the browser. Okay, so now I'll go back here. So I say kind of refresh my report. I click on BizTech, communication, cell phones. See, now I have my product key as well as the product description. And the product key as well as the product description. So because I have selected both the columns as the key, both of the columns are actually displaying. What if I don't want a product key to be displayed, I only want my product description, because I think product key is something. Okay, fine, I can define it as a key for uniqueness. I mean, maybe I use this as a uniqueness to identify the, I mean, it's like a primary key of the database, right? So how do you pull the data from the database? Maybe based on the primary key where you pull the data and display the information. This could be unique to pull the data, but again, this is descriptive. So what I would like to do is I would like to use my product key in the back end, in the sense, only for the extraction purpose, for uniqueness purpose, but only display the description for the display purpose. In the same, when my business user navigator, they don't really need to know the key. So all they have to know is the description. So here I can use I can either use this way, or I can update my hierarchy with only product description as a key column. But again, so I can also keep them a product key as the key column, but at the same time both of them as the key columns. But I'll do a small difference here. So where I would like to create as a display column. So within the key columns, I can create one of the key column as the display column. In the sense, out of two keys, only one key will be used for the display purpose. So let's go here and try to see now. I have the two keys now. I mean, I have the one key with the two columns. So that's the reason it is displaying both. Right? So now what I would like to do is I would like to delete the key first of all. Just okay. Here, okay, I've deleted the key. So now I would like to create a product description as the key. So I've selected my product description as the key, and I also want to display my product key as a key. Now if you look at here, I have the two keys. One is the product key, other is the product description key. Now if you see it again as use for display, right? So now what is my use for display? My product description, I'm going to use it for the display purpose, but again, I don't want to use my product key for the display purpose. And when it comes to the primary key, I would like to use my product key as a primary key. So now you need to understand one simple thing here. At the detail level, I have two keys. One is the product key and the description key. So now if I look at the primary key option, I selected my product key. What does that mean? When I actually drill down to this level, so see, end of the day, drill down is also a query. Suppose if I click on a brand, which means I am making a request to the backend saying what is the different line of businesses that is available for this particular brand. So it's internally doing a query and pulling the data. See, when I click on a line of business, it is internally going and seeing for this particular line of business what are the different product types available. So when I have to go and pull the data from the backend, from the database, the data has to be kind of unique. So that is the reason what I say is my product key is, I'm going to define it as a primary key. And if you look at here, my product description, I'm going to use it as a display key. But is it necessary? Can I have a detail level without the having both only this as a key? Yes, I mean, you can have. If you think like product description is something that you need as a key which is unique in the drill down or descriptive, so I can only define the product description as a key. I can simply leave my product key without defining as a key. That is very much possible. But there are certain situations where you think you would like to pull the data based on the product key, but again, when my user looks at it, right, I just let him look at the descriptive information only. So let's not bother about the key at the reporting level. Let it be on the back end to pull the data. Okay. So that's where I use the use for display. So if you observe the previous setting and the current setting, in previous setting what we did, we created only one key, and within that key we have added both, where in my product key and the description. So that's the reason by default the key is enabled as a use for display. So both the columns are displayed. So now I cannot make both the columns are unselect for the use for display, because both the columns will not be displayed. So that's not something that I want to do. I want to define two keys. One is for the display, other is for the non-display. At the same time, the other column, which is non-display column, which I think it's a unique, and I'm making it as a primary key. So internally OBIEE will use this key to pull the data and will display this information for the for the display purpose. So my business user will see the product description, but technically my product key will be used to pull the data from the database. Okay, so I think there is a question somewhere. When we create a product key in product description, it's creating like a product key plus. Yeah, I mean it's kind of depending on whether it is a display key is only display purpose. It doesn't really pull anything. But again, if it is a non-display key, basically you are using non-display key to pull the data. So one is to pull the data, one is to display the data. Suppose if you define, if you look at the product brand level, so it's both, it's a primary key as well as the display key. So it will be used as the, suppose if I say brand, if you look at my brand, this is my display key. If you see the primary key, this is the primary key. So which means it's both the unique key that I'll be using to pull the data, at the same time display the data. So it's both the thing. But at times, I can also use different keys, one for the primary key, other for display purpose. So in case if I think like descriptive is not unique, and if I pull the data based on the product description, I may not get the unique data, then probably I use a different, maybe it's if it's two products is having the same description, so my information is aggregated based on that. So that is something that I don't want, right? Because the products are different. Okay, so let's remove this hierarchy here. Since I've changed my hierarchy, I will be adding the hierarchy. Right, so now I can see the different. There's a check-in. Save. Right, so let's go and reload server metadata, which my repository get refreshed. I have my biz deck. Within my biz deck, I have my line of business, which is my communication. Within my communication, I have my product of cell phone. So now, if you see, I have the product description. I don't have the product key. I simply have what? Product description. So that is my drill down from one level to the other level. So if I want to go back, and I go back, and if I say electronics, then I click on electronics, I say audio, then it goes to my next level. I say accessories, it goes to my next level. Communication, smartphones, goes to the next one. So like that, now you have the data that is actually drilling down from one level to the other level. Okay, so that is in terms of creating the hierarchy for the product and updating the hierarchy for the product. And see, I mean, it's kind of playing around in online mode, where you can modify your repositories, you can see the changes that you've done to the repository. Okay, so now let's create the hierarchy for the offices as well. So I mean, I'll come back to the time. So within the time we can do another thing, which is we can create one more level of hierarchy. I'll come back once we're done with the offices. Now, so I have looked at the offices. Now, see, now the big question is, I have my dimension here. I have my company, department, description, organization, office key. So now, how do I know, what is the levels that I need to build? So as a layman, if I look at this dimension, so what makes me to think that which comes first, which comes next? Yeah, I mean, the question is, yes, I mean, we need to understand how the business is actually organized. Accordingly, we need to define. What does it mean? Suppose say calendar. So how is my calendar organized? Year, half year, quarter, month, week. Why is that way? Why can't we have like in a month and a year and then quarter? See, if you want, you can. That doesn't matter. I mean, if you would like to create a hierarchy which has a month level first, then year level, then quarter level, then something else, If you would like to build the hierarchy that way, you can build the hierarchy technically. OBIEE doesn't say no. But again, is your information organized the same way in your source? No. The, when I say no, does your month have years? So after the month you get the years? No. From the business perspective, you always store the information in a way that no, there will be any year. Within the year you have the half years. Within the half years you have the quarter. So your information is organized that way when you are storing the data. Your business is actually storing the data in that format. They are not actually storing the data the other way, right? So month and the year, they're not doing that way. So because my month doesn't have years, my year has months. So now when you're capturing your data in the database, in the source, in the applications, whether it can be ERP application or any application where you're capturing the information, so that is universal. You have a calendar and you capture the information that way. So even any dimension, you have certain definition for that particular dimension. What does it mean? Suppose if I say office, so you have some setup within your organization for office where you have organized into the different levels, right? Suppose I take a product. Within my product, I have organized into the different levels. There is a brand. Under each brand, there is a line of business. Under each line of business, there is a type. Okay, so technically, if you see here, there is a brand. So BizTech. Under BizTech, under one brand, what do I have? I have the line of businesses. So one brand is having multiple line of businesses, and under one line of business you have the different product types. So under the BizTech brand, I have the communication. Within the communication, I have the cell phone and the smartphones. Maybe under the BizTech brand, I may have something like an ice cream, assuming. Okay, within the ice cream, you have the different types of ice cream. So which means if you look at the organization of your product, how you are organized, you have the brand. So maybe I may be having 10 brands. Within the 10 brands, I may be having a different line of business. I may be doing a communication. I may be doing PCs. I may be doing desktops. I may be doing routers. Okay. Under the communication, I have my different types of products. So maybe I may be having cell phones and smartphones. Under the computers, I mean under the desktops, I may be having pre-built desktops, or some other types. Maybe I may be having one more line of business, which is the laptops. I may be having within the laptops different product types. Okay, so like that, your information is organized in this way. So I mean, it's not hard and fast rule like this information has to be same everywhere in every business. No, it may not happen. Suppose say this is a product which I am talking about a particular scenario. Suppose say if I am building a hierarchy for an ice cream company, assuming, suppose I'm building a repository for an ice cream company where they want to understand what are the different products they are selling. So now ice cream company may not have the information saying brand and line of business product types. So they may not have the same information. They may have the different level of hierarchies. They may have different levels. They may be having 5 levels, 6 levels. They may be having only 2 levels. So they don't even have line of business. They probably they may say that the brand, and within the brand flavors, within the flavors kind of toppings, within the toppings something else. So I may have the different levels. So it totally depending on your business requirement, right? It's totally depending on how your business is actually organized. Okay, so that's the reason you have to understand your the data that is organized in your system. So that's what your business does it, right? Suppose how do I know what is my business story? Because whatever my business stores in my business has that stored in my database, right? So the transactions, the business captured in my database. So whatever the business transactions, right, they're captured in my database. So now if I look at my offices, if I also even look at my physical table of my offices, this is my offices information, right? So if I look at this information, if I had to kind of simply say, let's create this hierarchy for this. So let's guess. So what comes first, what comes next? So now suppose company within the company, department within the department, organization. Can I do that way? I mean, is it means like the first one has to come first, then department, then organization is the same pattern? No, I mean, there is no hard and fast rules. That's what I'm saying. So now the first thing that you need to understand is how your office is organized, first of all. So one thumb rule is, when you're defining the hierarchy, it's always top to the bottom. In the sense, you have more information at the top layer and you have the less information at the bottom. I mean, you have less information at the top layer and you have more information at the bottom layer. So which means it is from total to the detail level. So which means if I look at this report, it's one brand is having multiple line of businesses. See, one brand is having multiple line of businesses. Under every line of business, there is a multiple product type. So which is like, the information is growing. The information is growing. So you're going from total to detail. So you have going to the more detail level. So that you need to understand here. So from here, if I think I have a company, I have a department, I have an organization, assuming that I would like to use these three columns because I know that these are the three columns that are descriptive enough. If I go and if I look at my data, say view data, right? So imagine like if you have to guess, so obviously company looks to be the first because if I see the stock plus, so this is one of my company within my stock plus. Now you need to understand one thing. So is it the department comes first or the organization comes first? Any guess? Is the department comes first or organization? You got my point? So the first level I'm going to define it as a company. Yes, because I have different companies and within different companies I have the different departments and the different organizations. So I look like stock plus the company is at the highest level because this has more detailed information down the line. So now if you look at the company, after the company, what do I have? I have my department in the organization. So company, department, organization. This is something that I want, but again, not the department first because under the stock plus, you see here up to here stock plus. Now, how many organizations I have? I have two organizations, inbound organization, international organization. But if you look at here, within the inbound organization, I have the different departments, entertainment department, technology departments, which means my department is having more information than the organization. So within one organization, which is my inbound organization, I have two departments, which is like, my organization is the detail level. Then my department is the detail level than the organization. That is the reason under the company, I have the multiple departments, inbound and outbound, inbound and international, and within the inbound, I have the different departments, which is entertainment and the technology. So that's kind of a thumb rule which you need to look at here. So from the top level to the bottom level, if you are defining the hierarchy, the information has to flow from total to the detail level. So the detail level you're going at, it has to be more descriptive. Okay, so that's the one of the basic rule that you need to understand. So again, that's the reason when you're defining the hierarchies, right, you have to have some business knowledge. It's not like you can blindly go and define it. Suppose say if I'm having a calendar, so if I ask you to define the hierarchy for the calendar without me saying anything, you can go and simply create the hierarchy for the calendar because it's a year, then the half year, then the quarter, then the month, and then the week. So you don't even ask anybody whether the quarter comes first or the month comes first because you know it. Why? Because you are using the calendar in your day-to-day life. You know what is a calendar. That is the reason you can simply define the hierarchy. But the same way, the business users, which is having a business knowledge, suppose the functional knowledge that I say. So when you have a functional knowledge, what do? You understand how your particular dimension is organized. So if I am a manager, which I am handling all the products, suppose. So now it's easy for me to, if you ask me like, how my product is organized, under what you have what, under what you have what, I can easily tell you, because that's what I deal in my day-to-day life. That's what I deal with the business. So that is the reason, you have to always work with the business to define the hierarchy. So you define the hierarchies, or at times, most of the times when you design, or when your lead gives the design, or when your architect gives the design, when your data modeler, your architect defines the data modeling, so they clearly define the dimensions and the hierarchies and the levels and everything, and they'll give it to you after discussion with the business. Because see, at times, you don't think that, you take the total ownership on your own. So you don't need to. In the sense, there are certain things that they don't give you options as well. I mean, option for you to create them. Because suppose, now I'm a very smart developer. So I say that, okay, I'll go and define my hierarchies on my own. But what does it mean, my functional understanding when I'm defining the hierarchy is the same or not? Suppose I think I'm a smart guy, then I say, I go and create a hierarchy with what I have. Suppose say, I look at this, and I looked at some information. I set in a company, and then within the company department, and within the department organization. So I create a hierarchy, and I say that, okay, hierarchy creation is done. Fine, you create the hierarchy, but does it what business needs? May not be, right? So what I define as a developer, not necessarily the right one. It may be technically right, but it may not be functionally right. So that's the reason, as a developer, you don't worry about, how do I understand this hierarchy? How do I know that, what levels that I need to get in the hierarchy? How do I really know what columns I have to use? What columns I have to ignore? So these are all the things, they are part of your modeling part. So they define all these things in the modeling. So the architect who's actually defining your repositories, so they will define all these things. In the worst case, even if you are as a developer, if you are given freedom to define your own things, so you are doing this in consultation with your business analyst. So you'll be checking with the business analyst, is this something that my business actually looking to drill down? So what do they want in the drill down, and what columns comes first, what level comes next, and at this particular level, what is the data type of information that they want to see? So these are all the things we need to cross check with the business analyst, and then we need to define the hierarchies based on how my business want to see. Suppose say, even if you take the calendar, I have the calendar year, I have the half year, I have the quarter, I have the month, week. Suppose my business says I would like to look at the calendar year, then I want to look at the quarter. They don't want to see at the half year. See, when they look at the year, half year, quarter, month, week. Suppose say my business says, okay, when you look at the year, but half year is something I don't need, which means I have the information for the half year in my database, but my business is not interested to look at the half year. So when I'm building the levels, I don't build the half year level at all, because I have the information for this, but my business doesn't want to see it. They think it's not required. I don't know, from the quarter I directly go to the month, and I don't want to go to the week. Right, so now here, what levels I keep and what type of information we keep as the levels is totally depending on what my business want to see. So ideally this is the flow, but within this flow, if my business says no, half year is not required, we don't really analyze that information based on the half year, so let's not keep it, then I directly keep a year level. Then within the year level I keep the quarter level, not the half year level. So sometimes even if you have the information, it doesn't mean that business want to see that information. So you only understand how the business really want to see the information, and accordingly build the levels. Now, so let's build the hierarchy on your own. So there are multiple ways that you are building the hierarchy. One, you simply right click on a particular dimension, so new logical dimension with level based hierarchy. So I'm simply defining it. That's one way. Or I can build my hierarchy from the scratch, in the sense I can build it everything on my own, so I don't really need to take the help of your, a hierarchy creation wizard. I mean, it's more or less one and the one and the same. The only difference is if you use the wizard, it will create a hierarchy with the two levels automatically, total and the detail, which you don't need to create. But if you define it manually, you have to create those two levels also on your own. That's the only difference. Right. So when I right click on this, when I say new logical dimension with level based hierarchy, what will happen? It will automatically create a hierarchy with the two default levels. One is the total, other is the detail. But if I create something on my own, it doesn't really create those two levels automatically. I have to create them manually. Okay. So I go to the model. If I have to create the hierarchy on my own, I go to the model BI and right click and say new. See, there is a logical dimension with the level based hierarchy. I'm going to create my new object, which is my logical dimension. Within my logical dimension, I'm going to create my dimension with level based hierarchy. So I'm going to define a dimension with multiple levels. So there is something called parent child hierarchy as well, so which we will discuss later. But let's see dimension with level based hierarchy. Okay, so now I would like to define my hierarchy, so I can give any name, office hierarchy. Okay, so I'm going to define my office hierarchy. So I'll come back to this one. What is this different types? So this is my office hierarchy. So now this is a simple plain, there's nothing defined here, right? So as I told you, like I need to define everything on my own. So I have my office hierarchy. Within my office hierarchy, I'm going to define a logical level, which is the total level. So I'm going to create the first level as a total. So total is the default level that we create. We specify it as a grand total. So what is a grand total level means? Suppose office. So what is the total for all the offices? What is the revenue? You always want to see that, right? Suppose say I have take a product as an example. So in a product hierarchy, when I'm talking about a product with respect to the revenue, so I have a revenue for combining all the products, right? So I may have 10 different types of products and 10 different brands and 10 different line of businesses, 20 different other things, could be anything. But if I want to see what is my total sales for all the products, I should have some value for the revenue. Even for my offices, the revenue for all the offices, I should have a total. So which every hierarchy will have one level which is called grand total level. So which means total for the hierarchy, and there's a total at the dimension level itself. Okay, so you always create a grand total level as a grand total level. That way, at this level, all your information is aggregated and displayed as a one single value. So product number. So for all the products, this is the number. Now this is the one, and then you can start creating the other levels that is required for you. So now I'm going to define my company first. So with my total, I have my child level. Child level is after the total what comes next. So which is my company. Then within my company, I have my organization. So again, as I told you, I need to understand what comes first, what comes next from the perspective of the information. And within my organization, I'm going to define something called another child level, which is my department. And within the department, so the last level is once if I think like after the department I don't have any levels, what is that I need to define? I need to define one more level, which is a detail level. So I can give it as you can give any information. Level names can be anything. It's not that you have to give the same name. So there's a total, there's a detail, and between my total and the detail, what do I have? I have the three levels, which is my company level. Within the company, I have my organization level. Within the organization, I have my department level. So now I have defined the levels, and now what do I need to do? I need to define the columns for the levels. So at each column, what is the column? What is the values that I want to use? At each level, what is the columns that I would like to use for the descriptive information, so to display the data? So I use my company. So I move my company column to my company level. I use my organization column to my organization level. I use my department column to my department level. And on the detail level, I use my key column. So always remember, in the detail level, you have to use the key column of your logical dimension. Suppose say if I have my product, so product key is my key column. So which means the dimension key that has to be at the detail level. So you see here, that's what I defined it. So the key column is at the detail level. Whether you define it as a display key or not, that's fine. But again, in the um, this level, you have to have the key column. So if you see here, offices. So I say office description. So probably now I may want to use office description as well, assuming at the last level I may want to use office description. Maybe. So I think there's an office description already defined. So okay. I already have office description. Maybe at the detail level I'm gonna add office description. So now I have the company, and within the company organization, within the organization department, and within the department description. So I'm going to define my company as the key. So this is my company. So used for display, which means it is actually a column that I would like to use for the uniqueness as well as the display purpose. So organization, display purpose, it will be displayed. Or I can also modify also later if I want to. I can go to my keys and I can select my keys and I can edit my key and I can set it up. That's possible. Okay. Or I can also go to this level. See, I don't have any keys. Now I can say key column. Within the key column, I can enter, I can select the column and all the things that you can do it manually. But again, it's the easiest way. Right click, new logical level key. So which I'm defining this as a key. Now, if you look at here, now the question is, as I said, there is two keys. One is office description and office key. So now I can define my office key as a key. Okay, and I can unselect it as a display key, and office description as a key, and I can select it as a display key. So if I double click here, my office key is the primary key, my office description is the key that is for the display purpose, where when you drill down, this office key is not visible because I have not set it as a visible. It's not used for display, it's only for the primary key that I'm going to use, and office description is something that I'm going to use for my display purpose. So as a check-in, save. So it is showing my offices as your I still see this error, warning, because since I defined my hierarchy manually on my own. So if I go to my revenue, if I look at my logical table source revenue, so there is something called content. So within the content, at every level, so what is the kind of level that you would like to use at the bottom level? So this is my detail level. So which is the last level when in the aggregation content by group, which is a logical level. So at what level you would like to aggregate the information? So basically it's always at the bottom level. So when you define the hierarchies automatically, this is automatically get mapped to the detail level. So sometimes if it won't get, you have to map it. How do I know that this has defined or not? Because when you check in, when you are doing a consistent check, so earlier there was two warnings. One is a offices, other is a customer. So even after defining the hierarchy, if you show these kind of warning for offices, which means the join is not set. So then I have to go to the fact table source in the content. I have to specify for this particular dimension at what is the detail level that you want to see. So I selected my detail level. So what is the last level that you want to see against your fact is, so you can specify that level. So now I'm gonna add my offices here. So I say offices hierarchy, I can simply put it here. Okay, so now all I have to do is simply check in. So all I have to do is still I have to do my customer dimension. It's up to me. So now I can go back here. So now since my hierarchy is changed, my repository is changed. So if I look at my offices, my offices is having a hierarchy. Sometimes it will get refreshed automatically. It does get refreshed automatically, but again, if you think it's not really showing what it is required, so it's kind of a browser refresh. It does internally on a particular time basis. Okay, but again, it's to be on safe side. If you want to make sure that you have your uh, required data refreshed, then you can do a reload server metadata, which means it does reload it from the repository fresh. Okay, now I can also create my hierarchy. If I say product hierarchy, I can also use this hierarchy. There's two ways where you actually analyze your information, where you can directly choose the columns, and from the columns you can drill down to the next level, but you can also drag your hierarchy directly here. So if you see here, I create my, so now the advantage of dragging, adding a total hierarchy to the this place is, because when you add the hierarchy altogether here, uh, the information that you see is much easier. When I say easier, you can navigate the information on the same screen. Suppose say I have my total, so I can go for the particular what is this within the total. I have my company. I believe this is my one company. Within my company, so I have the other company. I have the other company. If you see here, I can look at the three companies and I can analyze the three companies on the same screen. But in other case, if I click on the company and it will go to the this particular company, and within the company then it will show you the product different um, organizations. Within that each organization, it will show you the different, if I click on it, it will go show you, display the different departments. So but again, on one screen, on one page, you will not be able to compare the value for this and the value for this by seeing the same level. I cannot do, because that is kind of an old way of doing the things. I mean, from the OBIEE 10G, we used to do the hierarchies that way, but in 11G, they have introduced the hierarchy concept, which is a more sophisticated way. You can be on the same screen and you can analyze your hierarchy. Suppose say, if this is my information that I would like to analyze, if I would like to save, I can save it. So let me save this report as, suppose say office hierarchy. Okay, so this is my office hierarchy. So what I would like to do is I would like to go back to my catalog. See, I would like to open my report, which is office hierarchy. Now I can, so this is how I actually analyze in my real life. So I can simply press a refresh. I can go and I can look at, so I'm on the same screen. I'm looking at the information, but contrary to what I see here, and the earlier versions is like, so far what we're doing, right? So click on the company to display the particular company, and you click on the company, then within the company it will display you different organizations, and you click on the organization, it will show you the different departments within the organization. That's how it will display your navigation. Okay, so this is one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is you simply drill down from the one level to the other level. So this is the 11G specific way. So this is the recommended way as well, because on one single screen you can look at every information and it's easy for you to compare than going back and forth. Because see, to show you, if I have to create an analysis on the same information, suppose say offices, if I say company, and if I say revenue, so this is, if I see it as a traditional way, I can see these three different companies. If I click on one company and I don't have the information of the other companies, I cannot compare the revenue for this organization and the organization in the other company. I cannot do it, because I have to remember, I have to go back and I have to click on the second, then I say I need to understand the revenue for this. So it's kind of, I need to remember everything, and it's not possible for me to compare the things and do the analysis. So That's the reason, the new way of hierarchy, which is the 11G specific way, is the one that is recommended. But again, you can also do this way. So there are multiple ways where you can define the hierarchies. Similarly, you can build a hierarchy for a customer. So I mean, it's up to you, like what exactly you want to build. Suppose I may want to create only one. So you see customer, look at the customer information. What you have here. Uh, customer. Address key, customer key, income level, name, type. So probably no, I would like to see the customer type key, income level. I don't know. I mean, this doesn't have a lot of information where you can use the drill down. So this is a kind of detail level. So type. So type 1, type 2, type 3. So all I can say is like customers type and name. Say customer type, and again it's not the name, because under customer type, what do we have? You need to understand this way, because I said type and the name, then I say under type 1 you have the different customers. Type 1, this is another customer, this is another customer. Maybe I can click on type 1, and within the type 1 I can see different customer names for the type 1. Or if I have something that I can properly drill down from one level to the other level. So that's very important. Information is very important. What exactly your dimension is organized, how exactly your customer is organized. So you need to correlate with the information that is available here. You need to understand how exactly my information is organized here. So that's very important. So by your understanding, you need to see what comes first, what comes next, and do we need this information or not. And you need to go back and check. You can also check with your business, so what is that something that we want. So first of all, we look at the information. We can also discuss with our business analyst and understand how does usually business users want to see this information when they talk about the customers, right? So that is something that we have to have an idea. So let's create a hierarchy. So I have my total and the retail. So at this point of time, I don't really have a great retail. So from the retail, I'm going to create my parent level. So from the bottom also I can create one. From the top also I can create the child. So we'll do it from the bottom, so that now I don't really need to adjust the hierarchies. Suppose if I do it from the top total, I need to pull my detail into the bottom level. So that's kind of adjustment that I have to do, because under the total you build a level, and under that level you have to have the detail. It's not that parallel. So if we do it from the bottom, create a parent levels, it will automatically create it as an adjusted. So I say type. So it will automatically sit in between these two. So no adjustment is required. So it's sitting in between these two. So I don't need to adjust anything. Okay. So probably I would like to keep my customer type. So I don't even have a type. So if I did not add something here, I can simply add it. Doesn't matter. I can say type. Okay, so I define it as a key. Okay, simple. I mean, customer key. Probably now, if I would like to define something else, I can define. Otherwise, I can leave it as it is. See, some hierarchies, they don't have much information. So I define. So now see, even it's not showing that particular warning now. It says consistency, fix certain objects. There are no errors, warnings, best practices. My repository is consistent. That's what it says. Now I would like to add my customer. If I have customer, I'm not using any customer here. Doesn't matter. When you're not using it, you don't need to really add it. Okay, but again, see, I can define whatever that I want. It doesn't mean that I have to display everything to my users. So like that, we build the hierarchies on my dimensions, and where my hierarchies will be used to drill down my information, understand my information in a more detailed and systematic way. Okay, so tomorrow we'll see the hierarchies on the time. So probably we'll have a different way of creating the hierarchy with the different levels and all. Then we have something around time series functions. We have something level based measures. We'll see the different options here. So there are a few more options that is available within the hierarchy which you need to be aware of. We'll look at all those options tomorrow. Okay, so any questions before we wrap it up? Okay, I'll check Saikiran. I think did I see? So, what was the error? No.
Dinesh, this enterprise manager is not getting open, Dinesh. I've started the instance and
if the enterprise manager is not opening, it means that your WebLogic is not running. Remember, guys, this is a thumb rule that you need to remember. Enterprise manager, console are the part of WebLogic. If they are not opening, which means your WebLogic itself is not running. Your enterprise manager is opening, but your analytics is not opening, which means your Oracle process manager, OPMN process is not running. So Saigar, in your case, when you're starting the server, take a look at the beginning. Probably you might have given the wrong password for the first time, and when you're starting, it may be automatically failing or shutting down. So did you observe anything? So you sent the screenshot, but again, your screenshot actually doesn't really display me any information on why it is failing. So when you're starting the server, right? When you're starting the WebLogic, you have to keep a close eye where exactly it is failing. So you have to be little you need to look at the information. Otherwise, you can go to the WebLogic log file. Suppose if you see here, this is your, so probably it's not that you can always be sure about, you cannot be really looking at each and every line because sometimes it goes too fast. Okay, you can go to your domain and domains, BA Foundation domain, and you can see the servers and see your admin server, and there is a log. Within the logs you have the admin server log. This is your log file. Right, so if there is any error, you can, when in the startup, right, so you can see this error. So go to the bottom of it and see if it is failing with any reason. So there are certain errors it will write, that's fine, but again, you have to look at the latest log. See if you have to see, suppose if my server is failing now, I can go, if I look at it at the bottom, I can see at least if I go line by line, and I can see what error it is showing. Otherwise, what I can do is I can stop my server and I can delete these log files. And when I restart, this log file is created fresh. So since the log file is created fresh, and I can clearly understand what exactly is writing, so I can go from first line to the next, and see where exactly it is. See, so when your EM is not running, your WebLogic is not running actually.
Okay, thanks, Dinesh. Let me check.
Yeah, so that's how you have to troubleshoot the WebLogic issues. Okay, right, guys. Then I'll see you tomorrow. So good night.